What's going on, guys? Brad Messersmith here with Slurve.com. I'm going to be going through another GPP strategy plays video here for you guys for the upcoming Dean and Deluca Invitational, formerly known as the Colonial Invitational. We're going to be on Colonial Country Club this week, which is a course that is going to suit probably the more accurate scrambling and approach proximity type players. Bombers off the tee have a tendency to actually have a disadvantage in kind of a big way this week. So let's get right into it. One strategy point I want to make before I get into picking some of the plays that I really like this week. First timers have actually done well here in the past. It's been sort of a trend that is not always the case on every course. So it's worth mentioning that you shouldn't necessarily let the fact that somebody is a first-timer on this course rule them out. We've seen in a lot of cases first-timers actually perform very well. And typically those guys who are first-timers have deflated ownership percentages because it has a tendency to sort of scare people off of them. So worth mentioning that. We'll get into it now. There's a couple guys on here who are first-timers, so something to keep in mind. Starting up at the top, the guy I like probably the most this week is Matt Kuchar at 11,000. I think he may have the propensity to sort of go overlooked, although he's been really hot recently, so I don't expect his ownership percentage to be particularly low per se. But at 11,000, I think his price is a little higher than people are comfortable with, so I'm thinking a lot of people will drop down to Kevin Chappell, which is an interesting comparison because Matt Kuchar has very similar recent form as Kevin Chappell. He's got 2 third-place finishes in a row and 6 straight made cuts, 3 top 10s in four events. Really on fire. He's played several events in a row that have sort of suited the Matt Kuchar type game, which is just like Colonial Country Club. It's an accuracy kind of scrambler, game manager type course. Matt Kuchar really fits the bill there very well. I think I'm going to continue to ride the train with Matt Kuchar in GPPs, and he's definitely a cash consideration as well this week. Dropping down a little bit, Patrick Reed at 10,000. I think Patrick Reed at 10,000 is actually fairly inexpensive. He's coming off a miscut here just recently, but he actually is very hot. He's got 3 top 10s in his last 7 events. I expect him to have a little bit low ownership because he's coming off of that miscut. And it's worth mentioning Patrick Reed actually leads the field this week in birdie or better percentage, which really correlates well with DraftKings scoring. So, let's say, for example, Matt Kuchar and Patrick Reed at the end of the event tie for second. It's very likely that Patrick Reed will have more DraftKings points than Matt Kuchar will because of their style of play and because of that birdie or better percentage. So something to keep in mind when rostering Patrick Reed. We're looking for guys in GPPs to have really high upside, and I think Patrick Reed has that. If he can finish well, his DraftKings score will be very high, and will benefit from that. Moving on to Jimmy Walker at 8,500. The only concern I have with Jimmy Walker is his accuracy off the tee. He is trending upward his last couple of events after a little bit of a layoff following the Players. He's shown the ability to club down and play accuracy courses fairly well, so I don't think that I can rule him out at this point. He did finish 24th last week. He projects very well for me on this course, so all of those things considered, I think I'll take the Jimmy Walker at 8,500, and at fairly low ownership. I expect him to go pretty overlooked, being clustered there near some other popular plays like Jim Furyk. Next up, dropping down quite a bit to Will Wilcox, who I think is probably my favorite play of the week. I will most likely have a heck of a lot of Patrick Reed, and then I will also combine him with Will Wilcox quite a bit, which will give me some salary room to go up to some of those middle to high range guys in my lineup construction. Will Wilcox projects extremely well for me this week. He projected well last week as well, but throughout the course of the year, he hasn't really projected all that well for me in a lot of cases. So largely, I've sort of stayed off of him. There's been a couple weeks where I've sprinkled him in, but the past couple of weeks, he's really projected well for me. So it's kind of a situation where I think I'm going to start to get on him. At 6,700, he's at a really attractive price. Good putter from short ranges. Really good approach stats in the yardage ranges I'm looking at, 175 to 200, particularly from the rough. I think Will Wilcox has the type of game that could do well on a course like Colonial Country Club. And he tends to be a little bit more popular just because of his name recognition in the DFS community, but I think at 6,700 I like him enough that I'm going to go overweight on that, and I'll probably have him in something like 30 to 40% or more lineups this week. And then the last guy I'll mention, kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here as a flyer, Siwoo Kim at 5,900 is really underpriced, I think. There was a stretch early on in the year where he really played well. He had a good stretch of golf. He's sort of come down from that platform a little bit, but he is underpriced, and I think Vegas agrees with me. He started out at 140 to 1 odds, which was far better than anybody else in this price range, and he was actually bet down to about 125 to 1. So that line movement really tells me that DraftKings pricing got him wrong a little bit, and Vegas did too. He's a good tee to green player, good accurate player off the tee, so he sort of checks some of the boxes that we're looking for in a course like this. So for a lot of those reasons, I'm going to be on Siwoo Kim. And it's probably worth mentioning that I won't be going down into this 5K range very much. When you look at the course history, I'll have a little bit of Siwoo Kim just because I don't think he belongs in this 5,900 range. But when you look at the course history, this is a course where we've seen a lot of sort of lower price kind of 6K guys have really good upside. It could be partially because of the weak field. It could be partially because of the smaller field. There are going to be more players as a percentage making the cut this week compared to most weeks with only 125 or so players in the field. So it really feels like a good week to go stars and scrubs in GPP. And to me, I think scrubs you should draw a line from where you're selecting your scrubs. I think if you get too far down into this 5K range, you're losing the upside. I think if you sort of limit yourself to the mid 6K range and up, and maybe a couple guys in the low 6K range, you're still giving yourself that top 10 upside with these guys because we've seen it historically at this course. So you're not necessarily ruling yourself out that way. But if you drop too far down, I think you sort of get into that territory where you may not have the upside ability you need in GPPs. So that's basically it, guys. If you guys have any other questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Brad Messersmith, Messer Smith. As always, you can find me on the expert chats every week. We're going to be talking some GPP. Actually, we're going to be talking some game theory and strategy this week. So we're going to switch it up a little bit. Colin, Drew, and I are going to be on 8:30 on Wednesday. That's Eastern time. We're going to be talking some. I think he's going to grill me with some pretty challenging questions. So make sure you're there, and we'll talk through kind of some theoretical things and how we should be treating lineup construction and different payout structures. All kinds of different topics we'll cover. And outside of that, you can find my work at DraftKings Playbook. I write an article there every week. So Google DraftKings Playbook and go check that out. And other than that, good luck this week, and we'll see you guys next week.